Hi, and welcome to the Stack Moxie webinar on launching mission-critical campaign operations. I'm excited to have a chance to chat with you. Before we do, I just want to acknowledge modern marketing is really complicated. There are a lot of times that I feel like a crazy person with a bunch of red string trying to tie together all of these different systems and processes and humans to make great marketing happen. And wow, it is getting more and more complex every year of my career, right? And not a ton of people outside of our team really appreciate it. Certainly executives and sellers just don't get why we make everything so complicated. But wow, it is. So before we kick things off, I just want to introduce you to who I am. My name is Adam New Watterson, and I started my career in marketing operations, right? And so I didn't even know what marketing operations was. I just got asked to take over this software called Marketo and figure out how to use it to do email marketing for our clients, which is all we really thought of it at the time all those years ago. And so since then, I've spoken at a lot of Marketo summits. I was the leader of the Silicon Valley Marketo user group. I have worked at a number of different companies as CMO, and now I'm the head of product and interim CTO at Stack Moxie. And the team and I are trying to figure out how do we build the best solutions to help people in marketing operations do their jobs better with a higher level of quality, so much faster and with precision, et cetera. So today I'm going to be talking all about campaign operations and getting a new successful campaign to launch. And when I say that there are so many pieces to every single launch, I am not at all exaggerating about that. There are just so many tiny little places that we have to be able to work in and provide continuity of all of the things that we do, that it makes it a very complex process to launch a sophisticated marketing campaign in this day and age, because there are so many places that there are areas of error that are possible at every turn. And so this leaves just a ton of places for errors to potentially happen. And any place that is a little leaky bucket, well, perfection matters. It matters more than ever because our prospects are so digitally tuned in this day and age that things just don't slide by them. They notice when one of those airplanes in the sky is not flying in the right pattern, because they see the effects of it. Because everyone is watching everything that we do, especially if you sell into any marketing or sales team. They're certainly very keen to know when something is potentially going wrong. So a lot of teams are working around the challenges of campaign launches through a number of different processes, but essentially they're throwing people behind the challenges. So a lot of people start off with a checklist. Other people have implemented a buddy system, so they are making sure that there is cross collaboration. Certainly at every team that I have run, we have a four eyes policy on anything before it comes out, to make sure that everybody else has an opportunity to check and make sure that there aren't any particular errors in something. Uh, I love this one. We asked SDRs to volunteer as a second set of eyes, and that's great. But you are pulling one employee out of the thing that they are trying to do, and trying to get them to do something for someone else that certainly a robot should be able to do and could do a lot better than potentially they could. So what can't a robot do? Robots don't know whether or not content is good or bad. They know if content or text is incorrect or like isn't what it should be if you tell it what it should be. But the robot itself doesn't semantically understand the content in order to tell you whether this is a good message or a good offer. They can, there's advanced AI out there that can give you some semantic understanding of sentiment or things like that. But it doesn't fundamentally still understand whether something is good or bad. That's your job in launching a campaign, or that's the person who's creating the content and product marketing, wherever. That's their job to make sure that the content itself is good. But man, from a demand gen or an operation standpoint, getting every piece of the puzzle in place, whew, just getting it launched everywhere, that's still a real challenge. So that's where Stack Moxie comes in. Stack Moxie is an end-to-end platform for monitoring all of the processes that take place across your sales and marketing tech stack. And so what that means is kind of whatever the combination of technologies that you're putting together, Stack Moxie seeks to help you take control over those critical business processes that you have running in your tech stack to support your business, right? And so we want to make sure to support you and help you QA and launch your campaigns faster. So I'm going to dig into a specific example, but if you were a new client, you wanted to get started with Stack Moxie, the first thing I'd recommend to you is just start with a couple of campaigns to begin. Pick out a webinar or a piece of content or a really common event like a networking or a trade show that you're going to, something that has a high amount of repeatability in launching those campaigns. Start there. Then you can move on to more niche and complex topics. But start with a piece of content, for example. It's relatively straightforward. In the example that I'm about to go through, I'm going to talk all about a webinar because it's got a lot of complexity to it and a lot of moving pieces. But if you're going to get started, do your first one on something like a piece of content getting launched. So the first thing you have to do if you are launching any new campaign with excellence is get really organized, you and the team around you, and make sure that everything is in place, kind of moving into the ideation of what is this campaign, what is the message that we're trying to state, how are we going to make sure that our prospects are interested and motivated by the content that or the offer that we are putting out. So in this case at Stack Moxie, we use teamwork, we use this Excel sheet, we use a Google Doc, and all of these things together in order to coordinate and collaborate on, what are the critical pieces of information that we need in order to be able to launch a campaign, what are the dates, etc. And so once we get ourselves all organized, then we start moving into systems, right? So in this case, the Stack Moxie team uses Marketo for its internal marketing automation platform. This could be HubSpot, this could be Eloqua, this could be Pardot. Like that part doesn't matter. For this use case, we're going to talk all the way through Marketo, but it could equally apply to any one of those other technologies in the same sort of way. So, I've got this program, I've got landing pages, I've got emails, there's an offer and a form, there are smart campaigns, a workflow that are doing all of these things in the background. And I want to make sure that every time I launch a new webinar, that the same standards are rigorously applied, and that we make sure that everything has the same level of quality that we expect from each one of the campaigns that we launch. So I've got a template set up in Marketo, and the great thing about Marketo programs are these tokens that we get to use. And so being able to add in tokens for common things that we need, and then being able to change it out one time and have it work everywhere universally. That is a really great feature to Marketo. So these tokens are definitely going to help you maximize efficiency and reduce errors in your process as long as you remember to update the tokens properly. But as long as you do, they tend to perform pretty reliably. But there are still a ton of places that when you're launching a webinar, there could be issues. So broken registration flow. So when you go to that registration page and you submit that form, if there's a challenge with the form, it doesn't go to the right thank you page, etc., there can be all kinds of problems there. Similarly, every webinar provider itself and their integration with related technologies is fraught with a little bit of error. So making sure that you have monitoring in place to ensure that works as expected is always a great thing. I've seen a lot over the years of people sending out a confirmation email without the right details in it. So making sure that the correct dial-in number, or the calendar file, or the login URL that's unique to that particular person, that all those things work properly, is one of the places that I've just seen a bunch of errors over the years. There's source tracking, syncing to Salesforce, sending the wrong follow-up emails, etc. These are all just things that happen that could be totally avoided by having a great monitoring and QA process in place. So I'm going to switch over and peep in on Marketo and see the webinar that I've got set up here. So we've got a first invitation, we've got a second invitation. They're going to hit a registration page to sign up for the webinar. That's going to send them to a thank you page. They're going to get a confirmation email 2 hours before the event or the day before the event. I'm going to send out a reminder email. And then after the webinar happens, I want to send up a follow-up email saying thank you for attending, or sorry you missed it, here's the link. And then I need that on-demand registration page so that I can capture new people coming to watch the recorded version of the webinar, and be able to make sure that people can watch the recording itself. So there are a bunch of different things in this particular program. There are all these emails that are going out. There are all these smart campaigns to make sure that things are being sent properly, etc. And man, that could be really intense if I were getting started without having the robots help me out and make sure that everything was being inputted correctly and that all of the smart campaigns work as expected, etc. So in Stack Moxie, I've created, not the most simple test. I want to test every single one of those things that is happening in my Marketo program. I want to make sure that they're all okay. So I'm going to go in and I'm gonna start off. I'm going to create a lead, and I'm going to add that lead to be able to get that first invitation email. So I want to make sure that that email comes over and that none of my links are broken in the email. Or, hey, I'm going to check that the content of the email in that kind of main body HTML, it shouldn't contain like the word first name. And so that's in that kind of first email. So if that like token comes out and there's a problem with it, I want to make sure to catch that before the email goes out. I want to make sure that, we're making sure that it doesn't contain the words first name, etc. So if I just keep going, I'm gonna get some emails. I'm gonna check that nothing is broken. I'm gonna make sure that like my status in my webinar gets updated so that here people are moving through my Marketo program, moving through each one of the statuses on their way to my ideal success stage. It keeps going and going and going, and it's going to fill out the form and it's going to make sure that everything comes through. And 22 steps later, there's going to be an email that comes to me letting me know that I had attended the email. I had attended the webinar, and that the link is here if I want to watch it again, etc. And I can hit run on this, and it's going to go through and it's going to test every single one of those aspects of this webinar campaign and make sure that everything is correct in there. And frankly, I could go into more detail than I even did here. I could make sure that the text of a particular subject line matches what I expect it to, or the body matches what I expect it to. But in this case, I'm just looking, hey, are any of the links in my emails broken? Like, just first and foremost, let's make sure we don't do any dumb mistakes and just send out broken links in emails. I can make sure that the webinar URL is correct and that it properly synced with the webinar provider that I have, etc. And so all of this is going through all of these things. And if I look, I can see that everything is working as expected, as anticipated. It's filling out the form, it's going through, it's checking all of the links and all of the emails. And after all of that is giving me a positive confirmation that, hey, boom, everything worked as expected. And if I wanted to make sure that nothing breaks in the future, I could set this this scenario in Stack Moxie up to test again in a month, and just make sure that, I want it every week or every month to go through and make sure that this webinar continues to perform as expected. And so next week or next month, it'll go through these steps again. And if anything happens or if anything breaks, it's going to let me know. And I love that. So, so from here, I've made sure that this particular webinar works as expected, but I don't want to go through all of this work next time. Like the whole point of doing something that's repeatable and scalable means that I set it up one time. And then the next time I can just go and I can grab a template that I made from this particular, this was the scenario that I ran, and then I created a template of that. And now when I'm in Stack Moxie and I go to create a new scenario, one of these little options that I have is now for monitoring a template for a live webinar. And so instead of that huge long set of 22 different things that I needed to review and input on the original scenario, now I just have to go in and say, okay, I don't want it to be this particular webinar. I want it to be this webinar down here. I go through, I update it, I make sure that the program name is the new name of this particular program, hit save and run. And that's all of the work that I need to do in order to test a really, really complex series of actions that are going on in the background, making sure that each one of those interactions are happening as I expect them to. Every single time that I have a webinar, I want to make sure that, there's a sales alert that gets sent out, or that they MQL, or that a salesperson is assigned to a particular follow-up. I create an activity for them, or there needs to be an opportunity that's attached to, like, whatever the thing is that happens according to your business's rules. It can be configured in Stack Moxie, locked down in a template, and the next time somebody comes to work on a new one of these, they don't have to know all of those details. They just go in, they input the 2 or the 3 things that are going to change about this particular new version of it, hit run, and they automatically get all of the results. They make sure that nothing's broken, that none of the processes are messed up, that none of the campaigns aren't firing, etc. So yeah, so let's say I want to do some marketing with this on-demand registration page. So I'm gonna copy this on-demand page, and I'm gonna go into Stack Moxie and I'm gonna get ready to create a bunch of social media posts for this to get pushed out into the world. So I'm gonna drop my URL into there, and let's see, I said it was going to be social media, so I'm going to set my medium, and then what do I feel like doing? I'll definitely post it on Facebook. I love Instagram. LinkedIn is like the only place that I guess really matters. I'll probably tweet about it, and I'm not going to post on YouTube. So what was the name? It was 2203 was the name of my campaign. So I've searched within Salesforce. I made sure that I grabbed the proper campaign name out of Salesforce. I got all the sources for this particular medium in place. Now I'm going to generate my tracking URLs, and I've got all of these tracked URLs ready to go. I can just copy this little short URL here, and boom, instead of needing to use a Bitly or an Owly sort of thing in Hootsuite, I automatically have a short URL that I can put into any one of the places. And if I look in my URL bar, I can see that this is the URL for Facebook and that it's going on social media, etc. So this is really awesome because I can now test each one of these URLs, make sure that they are going to the proper campaigns in Salesforce, that they have the proper lead sources attached to them, etc. And all of that makes it so much easier for one of the members of my team to go through and QA and test that a particular campaign is ready for launch. So now I can jump over to my historical URLs tab in the UTM Builder and find any one of the URLs that we've ever created. And hey, I'm gonna go ahead and test this top one. Make sure that lead source detail is the campaign name that I created, and that 2203. That let's see. This one, 220331, has a particular status that I have set up. And in this case, it's blocked and won't actually be that status, but hey, you get the point. So I'm able to test this particular URL, make sure that everything that I have set up about this UTM tracking parameters is correct, so that when I go post this on Twitter in a few minutes, that everybody will be able to register for the webinar that I want them to be able to go watch. So, so now if we extend this a bit further, how do I make sure that I am helping each one of the people on my team be able to test the things that they need to test?
So with those new URLs that I just created for my on-demand webinar, I now want to test to make sure that when I navigate and go to this web page, that all the relevant information about these particular people are captured appropriately. So I'm gonna say download the CSV, and then hey, I've got a spreadsheet right here where I can do automated testing outside of Stack Moxie itself. So I'm able, as an admin, to put this directly into the hands of a field marketer in EMEA or a campaign operations person who doesn't necessarily need to know all the ins and outs about the way that Stack Moxie works. They just need to make sure that their work is tested appropriately. So, oops. So there, I'm going to upload this. Yes. Okay, so here I have my sources that I want to test. Okay, I thought you were going into that. And my short URLs. Okay, now I just want to grab the same details that I have for all of them. I am checking in a couple of places to make sure that the campaign ID is correct. There's the Marketo program ID, the Salesforce campaign ID. So I want to make sure for all of those things that they're being updated on a variety of different things. And so as a campaign manager, I don't really need to know about the number of emails that are getting sent and whether or not somebody's getting registered here or there, or having their status updated to that, or in Salesforce having a campaign member. All that's too complicated. I just need to come in, I need to paste a couple of details and hit run. And as you can see over on the right hand side, the run logs just got populated for this particular set of tests. They are now running in Stack Moxie. It takes about 3 minutes for this test to run, so I'm not actually going to wait on it, but if I were to click this outcome right here, I would be able to check and see what had happened in the time before that I did this. It had failed to create a campaign member. I got that fixed. And then finally I could say reschedule this once a week, and it'll automatically start running this test one time per week, or once a month, or whatever the case may be. This will continue to run on a schedule. So for the future, I can now monitor whether or not this link from Facebook continues to work as expected. And if anything starts to break in the future, I'll automatically get an alert letting me know that something has gone wrong. Well, let's see. To recap a little bit, we ran an incredible webinar, and we wanted to make sure that everything was QA'd and in its proper place before we actually launched our webinar. We have created amazing social media posts, and we placed ads in different places and made sure that all of those sources were attributed correctly through a simple spreadsheet where I just had to update a few values, and really complex testing happened in the background. So if this was interesting to you and you would like help getting set up, we have an incredible customer success team who would love to talk to you about your business processes. They love that. You can go to... So you can actually go to stackmoxie.com, and up here you can create a free account, put in your name and choose a password, and we will create a free account for you. You get 25 tests a month before you need to upgrade to a paid package. So that is an incredible amount of value that you can get. As you saw, I was able to do a whole bunch of things without only running like maybe 5 or 6 tests during this entire webinar. So there's a lot that you can do with a limited number of runs, and then as you get more and more sophisticated and you start doing real-time monitoring and you're watching as leads are coming in and out of your system, and as the MQL, etc., there's just a ton more that can be tested and monitored to make sure that the robot's got your back and you aren't trying to do a bunch of things yourself. Anybody can get a tremendous amount of value from partnering with Stack Moxie. We obviously help marketing operations teams the most, but hey, revenue operations teams also need to know that their lead routing is working properly and that territory assignments are getting done. Legal and compliance care about GDPR and making sure that all of the GDPR policies and procedures that they've identified continue to operate as expected on the sites for which they are responsible, and they have to do so in partnership, of course, with web operations, who has to manage migrating complex websites from one CMS to another, etc. All of these things can be tremendously helped from Stack Moxie. So hey, if you have anything that you would like to know or any questions, please reach out to me, and I'd be happy to share any additional information that I can. My email address is right there on the screen. I hope you have enjoyed this not live webinar, and watch the recording as you saw fit. And if you have any questions, feel free to join us on the MOPs Slack group. There's a community for marketing operations professionals, so just Google MoPro Slack and you'll find a link, and there is a Stack Moxie crew in there, and you can come hang out with us and chat about how to make sure that all of your QA and everything is amazing. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this webinar, and have a wonderful rest of your day.